It's really great to be here, and it's exciting to see, and scary to see a big room full of people. I was last here 11 years ago. So I look forward to seeing you all in 2033 for my third appearance at UX Lisbon. Also, maybe this is just for me, hopefully it's for everybody. I think a lot of people I know, probably a lot of people in this room, are carrying around a lot of trauma right now. Maybe not on the surface, maybe it's buried now because we're not right at the height of what's been going through for the last couple of years. But in my experience, there's a lot. So before I jump into my spiel, I'm gonna just maybe ask that we take 30 seconds, take in one deep breath, hold it, let it out, relax, be calm, and appreciate that we're all here together. Thanks. I'm gonna do that myself right now. So. All right, thanks for coming. No, sorry. My talk is called What Product, or Manage What Exactly, and a little bit why. So I'll explain where I'm coming from, and then I'll talk about what is the product when we're working in the public sector. When you're in the government, which is the kind of work I'm doing right now, and you're a product manager, which is the title I have right now, and you don't sell things, what is the product? I'm going to talk a little bit about how a product and a service are the same thing now. And I'm going to talk about the concept of innovation as a product and what that might mean. And then I'm going to share just a couple resources because there's not a lot on this yet, but I expect my list to grow. Also, I think my lavalier and my main mic are both recording, or both a tiny bit out of phase, or is that just me? If it's cool with everybody else, I'll just keep going. Okay, so where I'm coming from. I've written a bunch of books. The first one was in 1998 or something. And then 2004, Designing Social Interfaces was in 2009 and 15. I think that's what got me out here originally. I have a book out right now, which you may have heard of, Product Management for UX People. And in my career, or at least the internet part of my career, my first major breakthrough was getting hired at Yahoo to curate the Yahoo Design Library. And I came in as a UED, which is what they called UX people then. And I was doing something evangelical, by helping to standardize the design practices at Yahoo and then evangelize them to the rest of the world, which it turned out a huge career opportunity for me because I got to go out and speak and promote it and things like that. But it did occur to me after a while that I was in the ad business. I mean, I didn't sell ads and I didn't work on the ad team, but my salary was paid by ads, and Yahoo was a company that basically functioned to deliver ads to people. And that part of my work didn't fill me with joy. And I, around that time, started to do some volunteer work or some advising work for organizations that were trying to make a difference in society. One of them is called MapLight, and it tracks who has donated to which politicians in the United States and what they've been voting for. And this started in the kind of early days of the internet, where it seemed like, look, if we just make all this information available, people will see what's going on and it will all get better. And I don't think that that's exactly how it works, but I still believe in making information visible to people and making connections apparent, and then still causing people to take action or inspiring them to take action is more work than that. I also early on started working as an advisor, volunteering as an advisor at Code for America, mostly helping startups in their accelerator program improve their UX and later their product. When I was at AOL was when I made my transition into product management from UX, and I worked on a startup that they had acquired called Patch and kind of discovered my passion. I was very fortunate to have a boss, a fellow named Matti Schenker, who saw me when I came back from my several-week stint launching products at Patch And he told me that I was glowing, that I was full of energy. He'd never seen me so engaged. And he said, I think this is what you do. I think this is what you love to do. And it's great if you have people in your life who can, reflect that back to you, because you don't always have that. And you don't always see that you're getting more energized by some work and drained by other work. And so I started transitioning into product management. I went to a startup called Cloud On, and ran the product team there. We sold that company to Dropbox, but they didn't want me. So I had a 6-month chill out period where I got my energy back after trying to make a startup profitable. And then I went into another startup, this 7 Cups here, that's a giant cup, working on mental health problems. I ran the product team at 7 Cups for 4 years. We became profitable and sustainable and offered free, on-demand emotional support to millions of people. And 7 Cups continues to do that. And in the course of working with 7 Cups, one of our big projects was something called CalMesa, which stands for originally it stood for the California Mental Health Services Act, which is funded by a billionaire tax, which they define as an extra 1% of every dollar you make over $1 million a year. So they figure if you make $1 million a year, you're probably a billionaire. And California is a very wealthy state with a lot of billionaires in it. So the Mental Health Services Act has an enormous fund with trillions of dollars in it now. And a big part of that money was earmarked for innovation projects in government. And it was like about 10% of it. And it was sitting around being unused because governments don't know how to do innovation, and they're afraid to do it because it's risky, it's disruptive, and somebody might get in trouble. So we went in at 7 Cups to try to help California counties, which is the level that public health and mental services are provided at in our state, by offering them an extension. We have a free service. We have a white label version of it. We could work with you to sort of continue to offer care to people after they're discharged so they don't forget to take their meds and end up back in the ER 2 weeks later. It was a very interesting project, and it went sideways. It fell apart for reasons that I won't go into. But I learned a lot, and I gained a lot of insight into the people working in the government level, because I think I had some stereotypes about government work. That it's bureaucratic, that people are lazy maybe, or not that ambitious or motivated, and certainly not hip, and definitely not using the cool technology that my friends use and things like that. And what I saw was that that wasn't true. The people in government were dedicated. They had chosen to spend their lives in public service. They wanted to make the public health system better. They wanted to provide mental health. But they were also jaded and frustrated and burnt out because it was very, very hard to make change. And they were looking at the arc of their career and saying, I'm halfway through and almost nothing's changed. I'm going to get my retirement and this place is going to be working the same way it was when I came in, which is very discouraging to people. Anyway, when I left 7 Cups, I started consulting. I had a client called City Innovate that also that makes a product to help state governments do their procurement. So I was sort of edging closer and closer to government work. I started my own consulting company, Design in Product, and then the pandemic came along, and my work, which had been going swimmingly, sort of choked off to a thin trickle. And I'm fortunate, I've had some success in my life. I wasn't going to end up on the street, but I had a lot less work and a lot more free time, and it was the pandemic where a lot of us had a lot less work and a lot more free time. And we're still in a pandemic, so it was the beginning of the pandemic, let's say that. And I ended up volunteering for this project at MIT, or that came out of MIT, to do contact tracing in a way that wouldn't spy on people. And that ended up being the PathCheck Foundation, which is a nonprofit. And while I was at PathCheck building a product team, which was a really wonderful experience, it was a startup nonprofit with powered by volunteers, people just sort of dropping out to go do this work, which was pretty incredible. And while I was there, I saw an ad that the state of California needed help with their COVID website. And I said, well, I live in California, and I'm worried about COVID, and I'm a product manager, so I sent them my resume, and a couple weeks later, I started working with them. That's still what I'm doing now. I'm a year and a half into that, and considering dropping my consulting and actually taking a government role full-time. I'll know more about that in about a month. But I'm responsible for the COVID website now. I'm responsible for the cannabis website now. Just this week, we shipped a map that shows California residents where cannabis businesses are legal at a county and city level. And the team worked really hard on that. I felt kind of bad swanning around Lisbon while they were shipping, but they did get it out, and I'm very proud of them. I'm also somewhat responsible for the California design system that our team put together out of these other sites that we had made. And for the website of the team, which is about to change its name from the Office of Digital Innovation to the Office of Data and Innovation. And we're about to change our URL from digital.ca.gov to innovation.ca.gov, because it's not really about being digital, at all. Okay, I've just spent most of my talk talking about myself. So what's a product? People who took my workshop saw my prop. This is my idea of a product, a 20th century product. It's packaged, it's the same everywhere. It's put together in a factory. It's delivered at scale. So what do we mean when we say a product, a digital product? Is product management inherently commercial? And if so, why are we talking about product management in government? Do you have to be selling things to be making a product? Is there really such a thing as product mindset, or is it just kind of a new name for being good at making stuff? And also, how do you develop a product practice in government? Those are the questions I'm asking myself right now. And I don't have a lot of answers to these questions. I mean, I have some, but I think I'm looking for answers. I'm looking for a conversation. And it's funny because at one point, Bruno said, we don't really like talks that just start conversations. We like to give people useful information. So I'm the exception to the rule here, I think. I don't know how useful this information actually is. A couple of things that I think are true regardless of what sector you work in is that you have to have a shared understanding of what you mean by the terms that you're using. So if you're doing product management in government, you have to talk to the rest of the team about what it means. And if you have a product manager in government, you have to ask them what they think it means. And I have these conversations with my team because it's not obvious. And we have to negotiate our own meaning for it right now. And also, I'm very much a believer that product managers are not the only product people. That on a product team, everybody's a product person, and that the product manager is doing a coordinating role, but they don't exclusively own this magical product mindset, whatever it is. And as I said, I think products really are services now. There's no distinction anymore. It's not a useful distinction. I think service is probably even a better word for it right now, but they don't pay service managers as much as they pay product managers, and also service managers don't exist. But our product team at ODI has recently reframed what we do as service optimization. So I think there might be some terminology evolution on the way. So what's product management? It's not this. This is the shorthand that people use. So that's product right there in the middle. Some people say it's UX right there in the middle and design on the upper left. Product does consist of those three things, but this is a grossly oversimplified model. I prefer Geoff Redfern's craft triangle, where he says that product consists of sort of the nexus of sort of the general manager business type responsibilities, leadership, and sort of the ability of an artist to see the gestalt and to have leaps of creativity and innovation, and the rigor of a scientist to form clear hypotheses and figure out ways to test them and to use data and information and empiricism. And that the closer you can get to the center of that triangle and the mix of those skills, the better a product person you are. But you're probably going to tend to lean closer to one of those corners, the one you started in. Another remix of that original diagram that I like is to say it's about being obsessed with the customer. And I like that as well. So product people do systems thinking, and you might recognize this kind of diagram. Product people are responsible for persuading engineers to do stuff without actually being able to often make them do things or punish them if they don't do those things. You have to make them want to do it. Or you have to listen to them and figure out what they should be doing and agree with them on those things. Product managers are responsible for finding focus and for helping the team prioritize and for making sure that something coherent is being created. And product people have to work through persuasion and diplomacy because, again, not everybody reports to the product manager. And we work on multidisciplinary teams, and we have stakeholders at every different level. And all of these things that I've been naming are super helpful in making government services work better. whether or not there's a commercial product in the mix. Okay, and so when I say product as a service, I'm talking about the fact that we do need, well, think about it this way. If you're working in government, and if you're trying to make government function better for the people in your society, then fundamentally, you're in the service business. You're providing a service to people. At times, you're helping them know the information. You know, should I wear a mask? Do I have to wear a mask anymore? We're publishing that information and telling people the answers to those questions. We're providing a service that they are Googling for. We also may be helping a person receive their unemployment benefit, which has different rules now that there's a pandemic. It's more permissive, or it will last longer, or something like that. We need to update the software that actually calculates how much benefits they're entitled to. And we're working on a project right now, which the governor asked for a benefits portal, because everybody thinks making a portal is the way to get one-stop shopping. And our research and everybody else's research says that people don't want a benefits portal. Nobody wants that. No one's going to go looking for it. No one's going to find it. And also, we already have one that no one's using. But we went back to the governor's office and said, it sounds like you want to make it easier for people to find all their benefits. And he's like, I didn't speak to him personally, but the answer was yes, that's it. And we could have blindly said, boss wants a portal, and then we could have put something up on SharePoint or whatever and said, here's the portal. But the job was not to do that. It was to understand what is the outcome that's being sought after, and what would success look like. And can we inquire about this and understand the problem better? And then can we design and craft potential solutions that will improve the way the services are delivered now? And if we can do that, the governor will be happy. He's not going to say, I wanted a portal, where's my portal? He's going to say, look, more people who pick up their unemployment benefits are also getting their food benefits, just like we were hoping for. We know the gap. We know the people who are not receiving the benefits they're entitled to. We can measure that. So there's some real specific stuff that we can do to figure out over time whether we are really improving that service or not. And it doesn't mean everything we try will make it better, but we can tell whether we're making it better or not. And if we're not, we can stop the thing we are trying and try a different thing. And if we are making it better, we can keep doing that thing more until we've completely plumbed the potential of whatever innovative thing we were trying to do. So no matter what, we always ask ourselves, and I think this would be true in government or not, who's the customer? And it doesn't have to be a literal customer who's going to pay at a point of sale, but who's the what you might call the user, but the person, the human being for whom we're trying to provide a service. And for us, it's the public. It's everybody. Not just the people who can afford to pay a certain amount, or not just the most literate people, the people with the fanciest computers, or the best amount of bandwidth, or unlimited data on their phones. So for instance, the websites that we build are incredibly lean and performative. I work with some old school guys, not just guys, I work with some old school people that I worked with at Yahoo and have been specializing in making highly performative websites at scale for a long time. This California COVID website isn't the most trafficked website I've ever worked on. I worked at Yahoo, the homepage got millions of hits a day when I was there. We only get millions of hits a month right now at the COVID site. But it is absolutely the most consequential website that I have ever worked on in my life. The most important, most significant thing I've had a part of. And I'm proud of the fact that it loads up quickly on a crappy old phone. And that our infographics are made out of CSS, and if you have JavaScript turned off, they become data tables, because they actually are data tables that have been progressively enhanced to be infographics. So all the things that sound cool and are about sort of optimizing performance and things like that have a real purpose, which is to serve the largest possible chunk of the public that you can. A lot of my work since I joined the team has been orchestrating things, orchestrating the team, orchestrating the services. There's a lot of mapping, figuring out how are things flowing right now, how many actors are in the system, how many stakeholders have ties or expectations to the system. So there's a lot of what I would call information architecture in the job. It's understanding complex systems like that. And by the way, another thing that occurred to me while working in government especially on these innovation teams like mine, where you get people doing a tour of duty, maybe not making a career out of working for government because you make about 50 to 60% of what you could make otherwise, but willing to spend a year or two rolling up their sleeves and helping out. This means that succession planning is more important than ever. It's always important. Please always be thinking about who's going to do your job after you and writing stuff down for them. It's something we all need to do all the time. But generally, it's what you do while they're debriefing you before you leave, or maybe you've left some good documentation around. But in something like government, you have to always be thinking about succession planning because you've got people coming in and out all the time, and also you're working on decade-long timescales. Nothing I'm working on is going to fully bear fruit. Well, not nothing. We'll ship some websites in, they'll do some things. But the real work of improving how government functions and delivers for the public is going to take decades. I'm almost certainly not going to be around to see the ultimate result of the kinds of things I'm trying to do right now. I've entered the Moses phase of my career. And I'm just showing some artifacts here from the job. This is the kind of thing we used to do every week to update the blueprint, which was the weekly map of what's allowed in each county. It was an updated map with a search function, and we had this run of show. Once a week, we had to coordinate all these different teams and which is a theater metaphor, I believe. We were using, we used spreadsheets, we used tables, ultimately. Of course, I moved it all into Airtable, the product that I'm addicted to, and started coordinating all of these swirls, we called them. A swirl is when suddenly a bunch of stuff's been thrown at you, and you've got to get it live, but they haven't finalized it yet. And you've got to wait for approvals, and you've got to coordinate changes to like 13 different pages on the site. So I started creating a database so that we could track all the swirls and all the changes and who had approved them and what status they were in. There was no model for this. There was no kind of, just do it this way, this is how they always do it. It was something we had to just invent and figure out, which itself is a form of innovation, process innovation. But that table gave me, once I had it in a database, I could do projections, but I could also say, create a summary of what went live this week, which I then put into the Google Data Studio report that we sent out. So these tools started to bear fruit as well and become artifacts that can be used in later projects. Anyway, I'm going to show more Airtable screens because they look cool. And we'll share these slides, of course, too, because then you can see what was happening, what changes were happening to contact tracing in that era, things like that. Okay, so just a couple more points, because I know we're short on time here, is that I mentioned the idea that innovation is the product of our team. So I don't work in the California Department of Technology, the very large IT organization with thousands and thousands of engineers. I work in the very small Office of Digital Innovation with about 40 to 50 people in it. And I'm not a big fan of innovation labs or innovation teams. I think that that's, in the long term, not the right way to do innovation. I think that it sequesters it off. It suggests to everybody else in the organization that they are not innovative, only the special people on the team are innovative. And also, it's hard to make your work actionable. If the large organization doesn't want to adopt Slack because they like to use Teams, or if they don't want to use GitHub, or if they don't want to use any of our techniques, they don't have to because they've got site licenses and InfoSec rules and things like that. Nonetheless, what I've come to realize in this is that we're an innovation group. We're trying to teach the rest of the state or help them become more innovative. And that means that the product of our team is innovation. And the customer for that product are the other teams, the other agencies in the California state government. And so thinking like a product person, I'm trying to package these things up and have it make sense to them. I'm not trying to preach to them, you need to do it this way. This is the cool way. Trust me, I'm from Silicon Valley. What I need to do is understand their pain points and why things don't work for them and what they need, and then frame the innovative practices that I believe they would benefit from in terms that meet their needs, that answer their questions and solve their problems in exactly the same way that I would try to make an interface work for a customer. And it's a bit of a mind shift set, and I've heard other people talk about this today as well, aiming your empathy at your colleague and not just at the end user. Instead of saying, why does that person who's trained in a different way stop me? Why are they against me? Why are they causing this friction? What's wrong with them? Why don't they talk more UX-like or something like that? And instead, putting yourself in their shoes, thinking about where they come from. I always ask myself, what motivates this person and what are they afraid of? because people have a lot of trauma. People are afraid of things. They're afraid of getting in trouble. They're afraid of that bad thing that happened before happening again. They go, I've seen this before. I know this it's happening. Oh no, and you don't want them to feel that way. You want to respect that feeling because it's an information that they have in their nervous system. And they won't accept your solution if they're scared of it. And they won't accept your solution if it doesn't meet the needs that are driving them. It doesn't help them become successful. So I have found that the most innovative practice so far that I've encountered in the Office of Digital Innovation in the state of California is meetings. Because government work is very siloed, and teams work without communicating with each other, or they send infinite emails to each other, full of garbage and a tiny bit of information that you missed. And after a while, you just say to them, why don't we just check in once a week and kind of just share what's going on? And after a while, you have these kinds of stand-ups with lots of people. And if you're a product manager, your calendar starts to look like my calendar. But it's worth it. I'm a product manager. Meetings are work for me. It counts. It's terrible for everybody else, but it's great for me. It's a simple thing. But we'll have these meetings, and we'll say, well, I've got nothing new. Nothing's coming up on my team. And they'll say, yeah, we haven't heard anything yet either. I go, okay, I guess we're done. And then someone will say, well, wait, I did just hear they might be lowering the booster age to 5. And we're like, oh, no one told us that. Because it's like the water cooler or something like that. So it's kind of amazing that counts as innovation, but it really does. And I can see the gong is coming. So I'm pretty much done. I want to for people who are interested in government work, which I highly recommend, I find it very satisfying and very rewarding, and incredibly frustrating and difficult, but meaningful and purposeful. And I feel like the arc of my career has been to gain enough privilege to have the choice to work on things that matter to me. And if anybody else feels like they're reaching that point where you can choose what kind of work you can do, you could maybe take a 10% or 20% pay cut and still be doing pretty well compared to most people. Sometimes you can spend that privilege not on getting more money or the next best job, but on doing work that makes you feel more like you're making a difference in the world or improving life for other people. So if you are interested in this kind of thing, 18F, which is a government agency at the federal level in the US, has a product guide. And Ad Hoc, which is a consulting firm, has also recently put out a product field guide. So there's a growing body of other people besides me talking about what does product management mean, and does it make sense to do product management in government? And it's a lot better than project management, the end.